In this video, I'm going to show you how to find your line of best fit, which is also known as the trend line for your data. First, make sure that your data is set up like this and you have listed your years by number. That's really important. And then we're going to go ahead and create this in Desmos. So open up a new tab, and if you just Google or search Desmos, and we want to use the graphing calculator. The first thing that we want to do is set up a table with our data points. We're going to click on the plus sign up in the corner and click table. And we need to copy our data points over from our data set. So our first point is 035.6. So I'm going to go ahead and type that in. And if you notice, I can't see my point right now. So I would zoom out and just make sure that it is graphing. And on the x-axis, it's 0, so that's here. But on my y-axis, it's 35.6. So you'll have to zoom out depending on how big or small your data is, just so you can get an idea of where your points are going to be. And then keep graphing the rest of your data. So my next point is 134.8. And then keep going until all your points are in your table. Now that I've copied all of my data into my table, make sure that you double check that your values are correct. And then I have this little glob of points over here. And so to make my graph look better, I want to zoom in on that section. And I can do that by clicking this little wrench and changing my x-axis and my y-axis scale. So for my x-axis, I look at what values I have. So I go from 0 to 12, but I want to go an extra 2 in each direction. So instead of 0, I'm going to start at -2. And then I'm going to go to +14. So x is between -2 and 14. And then I do the same thing with my y-axis. So you're going to have to look at your individual data. So my smallest value is 34.8. And my largest value is 41.6. So I'm going to go from 33 to 43. Then I'll click on the wrench again to make that go away. And so now I have a better view of all of my points. And the last thing that I want to do is actually create the line of best fit. So I'm going to type Y1 to represent my Y values, the tilde symbol, which means approximate, and then I'm going to use mx plus b, but I'm going to do m and then x1 plus b. And it'll go ahead and create my line for me. And if you notice, my correlation coefficient is actually given to me here as well, so I can compare that to my value. It's giving me 4 decimal points instead of 3, but if I rounded it, I would get 0.651, which matches what I had previously gotten. I also have my 2 variables for m and b, which means I can then write the equation, which would be y equals, and I would put this variable or this value in for my m, so 0.305495 x plus my b value, which is 36.5363. And if it graphs it, you'll notice that this line's black and this line's red. So I can turn them on and off by clicking on it. So if I turn it off, the red line is still there. So it's exactly the same line. Or if I turn this red line off and turn the black one back on, they're both in exactly the same place. So this equation is what I want to, I'm going to copy that and go ahead and put that into my spreadsheet. The last thing that we want to do is add titles to our x and y axis. So if we look at our data set, our x-axis is talking about year by number, but really what it's meaning is how many years have passed since the first year, which was 2006. So when we label it, we're going to label it years since 2006. So I'll click on wrench, and next to the x-axis, I'm going to change the title to years since 2006. And then the title on my y-axis is going to be the same as what I have in my table, and that is Warriors 3-point field goal percentage. And you should notice that the y-axis is labeled here and my x-axis is down here in the bottom. Finally, you want to either take a screenshot of this or export it. So I can shrink this or hide my expression list so I just have the graph, or you can leave that on there when you screenshot it. And up at the top is where you can share your graph and export the image. And so you want to make sure that it looks the way that you want it to look, and then you can download the picture of it. Or you could also take a screenshot or use the snipping tool and then upload it into your final presentation. I also want to show you another way to do the same thing, but in Google Sheets. So what we could do is highlight both columns of values and then click on Insert Chart. Right now it's giving me a line graph, but you can change and choose any of your charts by clicking this drop down, and I can change it to a scatter plot. So I can click here, or if I scroll down, I can see all the different charts and pick scatter. I can then change my x-axis and y-axis to make it look similar to the graph I just did in Desmos by selecting Customize and click on Horizontal Axis, and I'll use exactly the same scale that I used before. So my minimum value was -2 and my maximum value was 14. And then I'll do the same thing by selecting the vertical axis. And in that case, my minimum value was 33 and my maximum value was 43. And then the last thing to find the line of best fit is to go to Series. And if you scroll down, there is a checkbox that says Trend Line. So if you remember, Trend Line is the same thing as line of best fit. So I can select that and then click on Label and Use Equation. And it'll show up here at the top. So if I move that down so I can see both, I'm going to close this right now. What you'll notice is the equation here is the same equation here. It's just rounded to 3 significant digits, whereas this is giving us more digits. Another nice thing to know is if you click on the graph, you can then resize it to whatever size you want. Or if you need to get back in the settings, you can double click on it. And it'll open up the settings again. You can change the overall title of your graph, or you can change the x-axis or the y-axis labels.